Dear learners, I welcome you all in this video where you will learn about the concept of price elasticity of demand. After watching this video, you will be able to understand the concept of elasticity. You will be able to explain the meaning of price elasticity of demand, and you will be able to explain the methods of calculating price elasticity of demand. You will also be able to understand the determinants of price elasticity of demand. Let us first understand the meaning of elasticity. The degree of responsiveness of demand to the change in its determinants is known as elasticity of demand. Similarly, the degree of responsiveness of a variable to the change in its determinant will be known as elasticity of that variable. So here we are studying demand, so it will become elasticity of demand. If the variable is supply, it will become elasticity of supply. So the degree of responsiveness of demand to the change in its determinants is called elasticity of demand. So the degree of responsiveness of demand to the change in its determinants is known as elasticity of demand of that determinant. You must have studied various determinants of demand which affects the demand of the commodity. For example, price, price of related goods, income of the consumer, and advertisement expenses. So, if you are studying the degree of responsiveness of demand to the change in the price of the commodity, it will become price elasticity of demand. If that determinant is price of related goods, it will become cross elasticity of demand. If the determinant is income of the consumer, it will become income elasticity of demand. And if that determinant is advertisement, it will become advertisement elasticity of demand. For example, we can say the degree of responsiveness of demand to the changes in the prices of related goods is known as cross elasticity of demand. Similarly, the degree of responsiveness of demand to the change in the income of the consumer will become income elasticity of demand. While studying the elasticity of demand, the measure of the degree of responsiveness to change in its determinants gives the measure of the extent of relationship between the demand to change in its determinants. And for calculating the elasticity component of the demand, we can use the formula percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in the determinant of demand. There are different types of demand elasticities which can be used in business decision making, and these are price elasticity, cross elasticity, income elasticity, advertisement elasticity, or elasticity of price expectations. Let us now understand what do we mean by price elasticity of demand. Price elasticity of demand is generally defined as the responsiveness or sensitiveness of demand for the commodity to the changes in its price. Elasticity of demand is the percentage change in demand as a result of 1% change in the price of the commodity. And here we are referring to the price elasticity of demand. A general formula for calculating coefficient of price elasticity is given as EP equal to delta Q by Q into P by delta P, where Q stands for original quantity demanded, P stands for original price, delta Q stands for change in quantity demanded, and delta P stands for change in price. It is important to note here that a minus sign is generally inserted in the formula before the fraction in order to make the elasticity coefficient a non-negative value, which shows the negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. We have just understood the percentage method of calculating the price elasticity of demand. But there are other methods also which can be used to calculate the price elasticity of demand. And these are arc elasticity method and point elasticity method. The elasticity can be measured between 2 points on a demand curve, which is known as arc elasticity, or at a particular point on the demand curve, which is known as point elasticity. So let us understand these two one by one. The measure of elasticity of demand between any two finite points on a demand curve is known as arc elasticity. For example, measure of elasticity between points J and K is the measure of arc elasticity. In this diagram, the movement from point J to K on the demand curve dx shows a big fall in the price, where price is falling from rupees 20 to 10%. So change in P or delta P is 20 minus 10, which will be equal to 10. This big fall of 50% in price causes a large increase in demand from 43 units to 75 units. So the change in quantity or delta Q will become minus 32. The arc elasticity between these 2 points J and K can be calculated by substituting these values into the formula of elasticity, which is delta Q by Q into P by delta P, and which will give you the value of minus 1.49. This means that 1% decrease in price of the commodity X results in a 1.49% increase in demand for it. This means that a 1% decrease in price of commodity X results in a 1.49% increase in its demand. It is important to note that arc elasticity coefficients differ between the same 2 points on a demand curve if direction of change in price is reversed. For example, the elasticity between point J and K moving from point J to K was 1.49, whereas if we reverse the direction of the price change and if we calculate what is the elasticity coefficient when we are moving from point K to J, you will get a different value which will be equal to 0.43. It means that elasticity depends on the direction of change in the price. Therefore, while measuring price elasticity using this method, the direction of price change should be carefully noted. Otherwise, it will lead to a wrong decision regarding the change in the price. The another method of measuring the price elasticity of a demand on a demand curve is point elasticity. Point elasticity is the elasticity of demand at a finite point on a demand curve, for example, point J in this graph. And the formula used for measuring the price elasticity will be elasticity of price equal to lower segment of the demand curve divided by upper segment of the demand curve. Though there is a derivation of this formula, but we will be restricting our discussion only to the meaning of point elasticity and how it is calculated. So it is calculated using the formula lower segment of the demand curve divided by upper segment of the demand curve. For example, in this case, we will measure the length of the lower segment of the demand curve and then we will divide it by the upper segment of the demand curve, which will give you different values. If it is a non-linear demand curve like this, you can draw a line which is tangent to this demand curve, and again we will use the same formula, which is lower segment of the demand curve divided by the upper segment of the demand curve. So here we will use the black line and then we will see the lower segment of this line, and then we will divide it by the upper segment of this line. At the midpoint of this demand curve Mn, the value of elasticity will be equal to 1. Any point which is towards point M from this point, if you calculate the price elasticity of demand on that point using the formula lower segment by upper segment, there the value of price elasticity of demand will be greater than 1. Similarly, any point which is in between the point where elasticity is 1 and the point n, you will find the value of price elasticity of demand will be less than 1. Any point on price axis, if you calculate the price elasticity of demand, it will be infinite. Similarly, any point on the quantity axis, the value of price elasticity of demand will be equal to 0. One limitation of using the point elasticity method for measuring the price elasticity of demand is it will not give you the exact value of price elasticity of demand. Rather, it will tell you whether the price elasticity of demand is equal to 1, greater than 1, or less than 1. But the exact value we will not be able to find out using this method. Let us now understand what are the determinants of price elasticity of demand, or what are the factors which will affect the price elasticity of demand, which will decide whether the elasticity will be high or whether it will be low. And these determinants are availability of substitutes, nature of commodity, weightage in the total consumption, time factor in adjustment of consumption pattern, and the range of commodity uses. So let us now understand these determinants. The first important determinant is the availability of substitutes. The higher the degree of closeness of the substitutes, the greater would be the elasticity of demand for the commodity. For instance, coffee and tea, rice and wheat may be considered as close substitutes for one another. If price of one of these goods increases, the other commodity becomes relatively cheaper. Therefore, consumers buy more of the relatively cheaper good and less of the costlier good, all other things remaining the same. For example, when we make a choice between wheat and rice, if price of rice increases, now wheat will become relatively cheaper and people will buy more of wheat to satisfy their needs and wants. As a result, the demand of wheat will increase. The range of the substitutes also affects the elasticity of the commodity. The wider the range of the substitutes, the greater would be the elasticity. For example, soaps, toothpaste are available in different brands, being a close substitute for each other. Therefore, the price elasticity of demand for each brand is much greater than of generic commodity. On the other hand, sugar and salt do not have close substitutes and hence their price elasticity is lower. The second determinant of price elasticity of demand is the nature of commodity. Commodities can be grouped as luxuries, comforts, and necessities. So, the demand for luxury goods like TV sets, cars, or decoration items is more elastic than that of the demand of necessities. For example, sugar, clothes, and vegetables. It is because of the reason that consumption of luxury goods can be postponed when the price rises, but it is not the case with the necessities. The consumption of necessities cannot be postponed. Commodities can also be categorized as durable goods and non durable goods, which are also of perishable nature. Demand for durable goods is more elastic than that of the non durable goods because when the price of durable goods increases, people either get the old one repaired instead of replacing it, or buy a second hand. Weightage of the commodity in the total consumption also affects the price elasticity of demand. If proportion of income spent on a particular commodity is large, its demand will be more elastic. On the contrary, if the proportion of income spent on a commodity is small, its demand is less price elastic. For example, salt, matches, books, pen, and toothpaste. Here, the proportion of income spent on a commodity is small, therefore, the demand of these commodities will be less price elastic. Time factor in adjustment of consumption pattern of the commodity is also an important determinant of price elasticity of demand. The longer the time available for adjusting the consumption pattern, the greater will be the price elasticity. The reason is that over a period of time, consumers are able to adjust their expenditure pattern to price changes. For example, if price of petrol is reduced, the demand for petrol does not increase immediately and significantly. But over time, however, people get incentive from low petrol prices to buy automobiles, resulting in a significant rise in demand for petrol. The other determinant of price elasticity of demand is the range of commodity use. The wider the range of the uses of a product, the higher the elasticity of demand for the decrease in price. As the price of a multi use commodity decreases, people extend their consumption to its other uses. However, for the increase in price, such commodities have a lower price elasticity because the consumption of a normal good cannot be cut down substantially beyond a point when the price of the commodity increases. So, these are the five major determinants of price elasticity of demand. Let us now check what we have learned in this video with the help of some multiple choice questions. And the question number one is, the degree of responsiveness of demand to the change in its determinants is called A. Equilibrium, B. Determinant of demand, C. Elasticity of supply, D. Elasticity of demand. And the right answer is D. Elasticity of demand. The degree of responsiveness of demand to the changes in price of related goods is known as A. Price elasticity of demand, B. Cross elasticity of demand, C. Income elasticity of demand, D. Advertisement elasticity of demand. And the right answer is B. Cross elasticity of demand. When the elasticity is measured between 2 points on a demand curve, it is known as income elasticity, cross elasticity, point elasticity, or arc elasticity. And the right answer is D. Arc elasticity. Which of the following is the determinant of price elasticity of demand? A. Availability of substitutes, B. Nature of commodity, C. Weightage in total consumption, D. All of the above. And the right answer is D. All of the above. Thank you for watching this video.